Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're really getting into a conflict with, well, two names. Some call it the French and Indian War, others the 7 Years' War in North America.
Right, and that name itself, the French and Indian War, it can be a bit confusing. It wasn't really France versus the Native Americans. It was Britain versus France and, different Native American groups allied with each side.
Exactly. It hints right away that things are more complex than they seem. This isn't just some isolated war. It's like the setup for the American Revolution, laying groundwork you might find surprisingly familiar.
It really was. And while we often focus on North America, it was part of a bigger global fight for dominance between Britain and France. Here, it played out mostly between 1754 and 1763. Britain definitely came out on top territorially, gained a lot of land,
There's always a but, isn't there?
but it cost an absolute fortune. And that massive debt, that's key. It really pushed Britain towards trying to get more money out of the colonies later on.
Okay, so what actually lit the fuse? If it was so important, what was the main trigger? Our sources keep pointing to one place, the Ohio River Valley. You had British American colonists pushing west, more and more of them, right into land claimed by France. And this wasn't empty land. It threatened existing French trade with Native Americans and, importantly, the autonomy of the Native American groups living there.
And you have to understand why that valley was so important strategically. It was huge for both the British and the French. It was like the main highway into the heart of the continent. Resources, connecting territories, everything.
So a collision was pretty much inevitable.
Absolutely. Just a matter of time, really.
Yeah.
A powder keg, like you said earlier.
And the spark. Turns out it involves a young officer you'll definitely know, George Washington. In 1753, Virginia's governor sends him out to basically tell the French, get out of the valley.
And they told him no, basically. Politely, I imagine, but firmly.
Right. So the next year, 1754, Washington goes back, this time with troops and some Native American allies. He launches a surprise attack to take back Fort Duquesne, a British spot the French had grabbed.
It worked initially, but then a bigger French force showed up and, well, reversed things pretty quickly.
Yeah, they forced Washington to surrender. But that whole incident, that fight, that's really seen as the thing that kicked off the wider war, the immediate start.
Okay, so Washington's actions definitely escalated things on the ground. But even before that fighting, the colonial leaders must have seen this coming, right? What were they doing? Were they trying to get organized?
They were. Even before war was officially declared, delegates from several colonies met up at the Albany Congress. You might also hear it called the Albany Convention. The main idea was, coordination. How do we defend against the French and their allies? Let's talk trade. Let's figure out this westward expansion thing.
And they tried to get the Iroquois Confederacy involved too, didn't
Yeah.
they? A major power block.
They did. They definitely sought an alliance, though how much the Iroquois actually participated directly in the Albany discussions is, well, a bit limited according to our sources.
Right, and it's at Albany that we see Benjamin Franklin step up with his Albany Plan of Union. Pretty forward-thinking stuff. He proposed a kind of Grand Council, representatives from the colonies managing defense, trade, westward expansion together.
Sounds like a step towards, unity.
It really was.
Yeah.
But it didn't fly. The colonial assemblies, they shot it down, mostly because it involved taxes.
Taxes. Always the sticking point.
Always. They guarded their power to tax very jealously. But still, even though it failed, that Albany Plan, it's significant. It was like a first draft for the future Continental Congress during the Revolution. A glimpse of what might be possible.
It's also fascinating how the Native American groups were navigating this. They weren't just caught in the middle.
Oh, no, not at all.
Yeah.
They were playing a complex geopolitical game.
They understood quite clearly that their best bet for keeping their land and autonomy was to keep the French and British competing, even fighting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If one European power completely took over North America, that was the nightmare scenario for them. Their lands would be swallowed up. It shows real political savvy.
Definitely. Now, looking at the war itself, especially early on, it didn't go great for the British initially.
No, they had some significant setbacks.
And the cost, right from the start, was huge. This led Britain to do things that really started rubbing the colonists the wrong way, things that would, fester
Like what specifically?
Well, forcing American colonists into service in the Royal Navy impressment, and then the whole quartering issue, British troops showing up and demanding food and lodging in colonial homes.
And if the colonists refuse?
Threats of violence. It wasn't optional. They had to house and feed these soldiers at their own expense. You can imagine how that went over.
Yeah, I could see how that would build resentment.
Mm-hmm.
Big time.
Yeah.
Seeds of future conflict right there.
For sure. So fast forward, the war finally ends in 1763 with the Peace of Paris. And this wasn't just a ceasefire. It completely reshaped the map. The terms were huge. Spain gave Florida to Britain. The French, they were basically kicked out of North America entirely.
On. Their land west of the Mississippi went to Spain, kind of as compensation for Spain losing Florida.
And Britain got everything east of the Mississippi River, including that Ohio River Valley they'd been fighting over.
So a massive victory for Britain on paper. But those very terms, that new reality, immediately created two major problems. Problems that just cranked up the tension between Britain and the colonies.
Okay, what were they?
Well, first off, the relationship with Native Americans got way worse.
Right. Because now the Ohio Valley is officially British, and those land-hungry American colonists.
So start flooding west, pushing right into territories where Native nations had lived for generations. Cue more conflict, intense conflict.
You see it almost immediately.
Absolutely. Think about Pontiac, the Ottawa leader. He led major raids against British forts, against settlers pouring into places like the Detroit area. It was a direct response to this westward push, real resistance.
And Britain's reaction to that violence. Parliament steps in and draws the Proclamation Line of 1763, basically a line down the Appalachian Mountains. They told the colonists, you cannot go west of this line. No settling in the Ohio Valley.
Trying to keep the peace, maybe? Or just control things.
Probably a bit of both.
Yeah.
But the colonists, they largely ignored it. They felt they'd earned the right to that land. They fought a war for it, or on it, anyway.
So more resentment. Britain trying to tell them where they can and can't go.
Exactly. It created huge opposition to British control over westward movement. Okay, so that's consequence number one. What was the second?
The second consequence? Money. Or rather, the lack of it. The war debt was just staggering. We're talking Britain's national debt roughly doubling.
Yeah.
And the cost just to administer the colonies shot up, like 5 times what it was before the war.
Wow. Okay, that's unsustainable.
Totally. The British government was under incredible financial pressure.
And so, let me guess. They decided the colonies should help pay for this war fought, in part, to protect them.
Bingo. That's the crucial moment. To deal with the debt and the ongoing costs, Parliament decided it was time to raise money directly from the American colonies through new taxes.
Ah, and this wasn't like the old trade duties. This was different.
Completely different. Direct taxes imposed by Parliament, not the colonial assemblies. And that decision, that shift in policy,
That's the road to revolution, isn't it?
that's the main highway. It becomes the central point of conflict. Taxation without representation. It shows how this war, fought over territory thousands of miles away, fundamentally changed everything and directly sparked the American Revolution.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? So, for a final thought, maybe consider this. What does this whole deep dive into the French and Indian War really show us about, well, winning? How can victory in one area achieving specific goals like territorial expansion accidentally unleash completely unintended consequences? How can these seemingly distant disputes escalate and reshape global power, even sparking revolutions nobody saw coming at the start?